everything else. That's irrelevant, but that's not. He said he could open them if he wanted to.
He said he wanted to get the zones changed up. So he just
Yeah, and I think that totally. Yeah, she's been friendly. She's just been as a matter of fact. Because when I asked her to provide me letters, she was fine. Do it because for her reason. She would do it, which made me not to the
Never changed it up a fan. His stuff.
Yes, yes, yes. And well, I wasn't sure because, like I said, conflicting information when she said there's no problem with her in, but she said she would. On ABC, it's black and white. Yeah, yeah.
So everything that we both been frustrated with.
I don't know that y'all been yours frustrated, as I have, but I appreciate it.
Let me get this thing kicked off.
Thank you, thank you. How are you?
Doing good.
That's what they're trying to find out.
Be a lawyer.
That $10 bottle of water. I've never tried
Mr. Everson. It tastes like Sprite without sugar. I know it's over. It's hard to get to it.
Yeah.
I had two.
Thanks for I was glad I remembered to even before you texted me, called you. I know, I just wanna, good to see you. Good understanding. Like doing this. To January?
Which is what I had already said, but I really didn't, I was like, because I said 6 months, 6 to 8 months. Is that a partial version? he sees me release it. He said, I think it's gonna be okay, but if not, we're gonna go back in there and clean up scar tissue.
Hello, Mr. Bassett.
Hello. Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay, LPJ over there. I'll go ahead and sit down. Where's Todd? I was gonna ask Mr. Commissioner Lazarus to do the pledge. And I was gonna ask Commissioner Jones to do the invocation, but he's not here. Would you like to do the invocation? Or would you like to do
Yeah, sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming in today. I'd like to call this October 3rd work session into order. It is currently 3:35. Mr. Clerk, could we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Hopkins. Saw him somewhere, but Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah, you have. I'm sorry. You have 8 of 12 present. That is a quorum. Just
Thank
for
you
the
very
record.
much. Commissioner Burrell, could you please lead us in the invocation? And Commissioner Lazarus, would you please lead us in the pledge? Everyone stand up, please.
Lord, we want to thank you for this day. Thank you for bringing us all here today to do the business of Caddo Parish and the people of Caddo Parish. Help us, oh Lord, as we go through this meeting to do the right thing for our constituents. Also extend your hand to Florida due to the devastation that are there. Allow this to be a time that they will know that you are God and you can do all things. All these, in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in reciting the pledge. Military and veterans render the proper salute. Remember our POWs and MIAs. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell, for that invocation, and thank you, Commissioner Lazarus, for the pledge. Mr. Clerk, do we have any agenda additions?
Not aware of any, unless you have any today.
No, I'm not aware of any.
Okay, and that brings us to citizens' comments, where citizens who'd like to make a comment before the commission on any issue other than zoning are asked to fill out a comment card located in the chamber foyer and return to the president or the clerk of commission. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. And I believe we've received 2 requests today, and you should have those. I've not received any additional at this point.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Clerk, if you could please let the minutes read that Commissioner Jackson has arrived. And Mr. Coburn, you'd be our first citizen's comment. Welcome, Mr. Coburn.
Thank you all. First meeting I've been to. Appreciate y'all letting me come out and voice my opinion, and was really glad to hear the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. So thank y'all for that.
Thank you.
My name's Randy Coburn. I live at 7355 Winder Weedle Road in Shreveport, and we were recently changed our zoning. Was voted to go to commercial instead of residential. And as a homeowner, I own 7 acres there and close to that location. I've got 3 kids and a wife, and one of the reasons I purchased that piece of land was it was out of the ruckus and my children would have plenty of room to run and play. And if this does go through, obviously that's going to cause a lot more traffic coming through the area, which affects my little girl riding her bicycle up and down the road. And we already have a trash problem, so it's going to increase the trash problem with more traffic if the business is successful. And also from a father's standpoint, with the amount of land that I own, my whole vision was for one of my 3 children, or 2 of my 3 children, or all of them at some point, if they wish to have a home out there with me and their mom, that they would have that opportunity. Well, being commercial, if that goes through, obviously that, that hope and that dream that I had for my family to all be together right there would be tarnished. And from a business standpoint, I'm a business owner. The location proposed for this business, it just doesn't make any business sense due to demographics, psychographics, visibility, safety. There's plenty of areas in the city that this location could be at besides a residential area. I just don't see, I just feel like it's just a small door that's going to open a much larger door at some point. And I just wanted to make sure that, I don't know if y'all have been to the area, but if you get time and you're not too busy, drive by. And I just want y'all to, on your consideration, to put yourself in my shoes and see where I'm coming from for that location and for where I'm at. So I just want y'all to take that into consideration. And I would appreciate it if y'all would not allow that to happen. Obviously, for commercial property, it increases property value. Well, that's fine if you're a business owner or if you're wanting to open a business. But from my standpoint, once that's deemed commercial, that goes back to if my kids want to come in, or if at some point that does commercial and I try to sell my property at some point and move us somewhere else, it's going to be really hard for me to sell a residential place with businesses all around. And who knows what may or may not move in. That's just how it goes with businesses, right? It could be a mechanic shop, or it could be a nice facility that, trash everywhere, or who knows. So I don't want to roll the dice on that. I want y'all to vote no on that. And like I said, I appreciate y'all letting me come out and visit with you.
Thank you, Mr. Coburn. We
All right.
appreciate you coming down.
Absolutely.
Miss Schexnader. Did I get it wrong? Schexnader?
Yes, Melinda Schexnader, and I appreciate y'all letting us come and speak to you today. I'm gonna put my glasses on so I can copy with my notes.
Schexnader, I should tell you have 3 minutes on the board up there.
Okay. And I have the case number that Mr. Coburn was speaking to. It's case number 22-20-P that came before the Metropolitan Planning Commission last week. And we are here in opposition of what the MPC did approve this business going in a curve. I submitted a letter over the weekend to Mr. Epperson, and I believe he has forwarded that to each one of you with the concerns. One thing I do want to make certain that you are aware of today, other than our opposition to what has happened, in the meeting for the MPC last week, first off, when we, at the residents that were at the meeting that day, we were the first ones in the chambers. As people came in, the gentleman who wants to open the business, I believe his name is Kendrick Ferris. As he came in and his family and members of the MPC came in, there was some fist bumping correspondence going on between them prior to the meeting going on. We felt that was inappropriate to something that was fixing to be voted on to make a decision about opening a business in the area. Also, 3 of the members that I myself saw came in with chips in hand, sat at their stations up front over the microphone, could hear them eating while the meeting was being, the business was being taken care of at hand. Let me see. Let me get back to my glasses. The chair lady had asked them to also pull down their microphones so that we could hear what they were having comments back to our main spokesperson. The lady that sat pretty much there in front of the American flag, she just never did. She did this and never moved her microphone, and I just thought that was kind of a blatant refusal to cooperate. So, addressing, as Mr. Randy did on the other things, we talked worried about our taxes going up for this area. Drainage problems has already been addressed for this area, trash, traffic. And if we do go commercial in that area, I have, and I'll hold it up, last week I was able to show you. This yellow and pink area is the property that I myself and family own in this area. And we run cattle, we have previously ran cattle, we have horses, we have chickens, we have goats, all kinds of livestock. The yellow area would be what changes to commercial. And if that changes to commercial, all those little areas are homes. And you're opening us up to anybody coming in and us no longer having a voice as to someone opening a business there. And that's very much a concern. I have another letter. I know I'm out of time.
Motion to extend.
Dan?
That's right. Go ahead.
Thank you. Another neighbor that was at the MPC meeting last week, Miss Carolyn Price and Mr. Claude Price, they left on vacation. Submitted a letter to Mr. Epperson so it'd be on file in their opposition also of this. And she brought up a very valid point in this that I had not thought about. They are on a Social Security income. And I'm just about to that point myself with my husband already is in that point. A lot of us in that area are under a limited income. So if the taxes are raised, that's going to be a huge problem for a lot of us to think of that. And they grow organic garden and they feed themselves off of their garden. Especially with their limited income. But again, Mr. Epperson has a copy of her letter. And I have another letter that was presented to the MPC last week, and I don't know if y'all would ever get a copy of that. I didn't give you a copy of that one, Mr. Epperson, but I can, from Deborah McCauley, and it incorporates a corner of her property, and it's actually the corner where she raises her chickens. And so if that went commercial, you know what happens? I understand that you may grandfather in livestock, but I've also heard that once those grandfathered animals pass, that you're not allowed to replace them. And I don't know for fact, but I've been told that by other people that were further within the city and we're not in the city, thank the Lord, that we're not. But one other thing that I did want to mention, or two actually. Mr. Ferris, at his closing arguments that we were not able to readdress anything, he told the commission, the MPC, that I didn't even have to apply for a zoning change. If I wanted to, I can open this and call it a soup kitchen. Pretty much saying, y'all can do what you want to do, I can do what I want to do. So that was very much a concern. Those were his words. So if he was to do that, who's to stop him? And we don't oppose anybody opening a business. Good for anyone, but do what you say you're going to do. And also, at the end, my very last comment in the meeting, in the letter that I sent to Mr. Epperson, when we stood for the Pledge of Allegiance, my son is a veteran. Mr. Claude Price that lives there is a veteran. I know Mr. Epperson is a veteran. I don't know who else in the room is. That family did not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and that was a kick in the throat to me and to the other residents that live in that area, that they did not honor our flag and our pledge. I thank you for your time, and I hope you take into consideration what I've had to say today. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to me through email or however you would like to contact me.
Thank you very much. And just so you know, we can only listen during this session, so we can't ask questions. It's not that we don't care, we just can't ask questions. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
Yes,
be
sir.
recognized. Point of information.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
To the persons that came down and spoke, I assume that the process for appealing that decision will come before this board. If I may ask the parish attorney.
Commissioner, that is correct that they have an appeal to the parish commission, and were you all given that information?
No, ma'am. When we tried to ask anything, we were told our time was up and that we could go.
Okay, and when did the hearing take place?
Last Wednesday, September the 28th.
Okay, so I think there's a 10-day time limit. I defer to the clerk on that. But there should be some information for you all to file an appeal to have that heard by the parish commission.
Okay, will that information be on your website or the Metropolitan Planning Commission?
That's a good question. Mr. Clark, do you know where that appeals information is?
Yes, please, just so it's on the record. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
And I'm not totally remembering I remember the case, but I think this was a rezoning property that was initially zoned rural agricultural to C2, I believe. So it was not appealed. It will come to you anyway because you will have to actually rezone the property.
Okay, with that, Mr. Chairman, that answers my question. So when it comes to us, I want to put on record that I will ask this board to overturn that decision if it's on our purview.
Okay, let me just.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to address the issue here, Mr. Clark, before you go, what is the appeals process, just so they know how to appeal if they would like to appeal?
There's not a need for an appeal. It has, as the process comes, it will come before the Caddo Parish Commission.
Okay, so it's
As
automatic.
a recommendation from, and we need to correct for the record that this recommendation is coming from the Caddo Parish Planning and Zoning Commission and not the Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Okay, and it will come to us automatically?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It should be on
Mr.
for
Clerk, point of
introduction.
information, I'll handle it when it comes here.
okay.
And it should be on for introduction at the next work session, which is 2 weeks from today.
So, well,
I'll speak with you all later, okay?
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is that all, Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
That's
Clark.
it, Mr. Clark, thank you.
Chairman, before Mr. Clark leaves, I
Oh.
wanted to, if I may get a point of privilege.
Yes, sir.
I think you answered the question, but I was going to ask this in regards to the board that had convened that they met with. Was it the parish planning or was it the MPC?
It was the Caddo Parish Planning and Zoning Commission.
So it was our appointed board members
It's
that
yours
were?
appointed board members.
Okay.
It was 5 of the 6 that y'all are appointed.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you so much for the back and forth. All right, I think we are ready to move ahead. Thank you all for coming down. I think we're ready to move ahead, Mr. Clark.
Okay, that brings us to visitors. I'm not aware of any scheduled visitors we have on the agenda today. So we will move forward. We have our master plan update on the first work session of the month. Mr. Clark, did you have a...
Oh, sorry, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And this will be extremely brief, Mr. Chairman. We have been reviewing the master plan, going through it. There's some things, and I shared this with the City of Shreveport Council last week. We still believe that regional planning is critically important, and we had some committees under the auspices of the Metropolitan Planning Commission where we had representatives from the Caddo Parish Commission, the City Council, and the MPC, and we're possibly in 2023 will be reaching out to both of these legislative bodies to ask for representatives to work with us in the master plan committee, because we think that the master plan, as I shared with you earlier, the master plan was adopted back in 2010, and many things have changed since 2010, and we've learned a lot since 2010, and it's important that the master plan is updated. It should have been updated every 5 years. Nothing has happened since 2010. So we will be going through that process and trying to update the master plan to make it even more reflective of the ruralness of the unincorporated areas. I think one thing that truly happened as a result of some of the events of the past was that you now, and one of the concerns the citizens in the unincorporated area had was they had no representation. You have a board now of 6 members from unincorporated Caddo Parish. So there is a good division between the city of Shreveport and the parish of Caddo and those board members. So those are just some of the things that we're going to be bringing to you in the very near future, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then that brings us to reports, where the administrative report is attached.
Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Pray that everybody's feeling well today. We have a few items we'd like to cover with you all. Just a reminder that on the 14th of October at 10 o'clock, we'll have the grand reopening of the Veterans Affairs Center, along with our adult drug court training center as well. Same location. Also, the Expungement Summit and Resource Fair will be conducted the same day at the State Fairgrounds at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 2 p.m. that day.
I'm sorry, what summit was that, sir?
It's going to be at 10 a.m.
What is?
This is the Expungement and the Resource Fair that Commissioner Gage Watts is heading up. That will be take place at the Agricultural Building at the State Fairground. And we are double tasking that day, of course. So we believe that the Veterans Affairs program will start at 10 a.m. Should last about an hour. Then we'll transition over to the other venue. But the vendors will be there already set up for job fair and resources fair. Also, we have in our detention center today, we have 17 children. 6 belongs to OJJ, and 6 of the 17-year-olds, 6 of the 17 kids are 17-year-olds, and we have 8 kids that CCC. Also, COVID-19 infection rate, month to date, we have 10 infections in the organization and 4 for agencies that report that we deal with, outside agencies. So that pretty much concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Any questions for Dr. Wilson at this time? Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson, on
Yes, sir.
the CCC crowding issue, I got this notice or this response here. I'm gonna amend it and add something to it. I'll send you to it. I've had some conversations. I didn't get a chance to attend the meeting, and I got my honey bun that I'm told the cafeteria workers
Yes, sir.
provided to you.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I'm not sure how many cafeteria workers at CCC watching our meeting and cared that much about a honey bun. They bring me one, but allegedly a cafeteria worker. But tell them I appreciate it.
Okay, I will, sir.
I'm concerned because I heard one, because we have a, contrary to what some folks believe, we have a vested interest in what's going on at CCC because we're responsible for the location. We're also responsible for paying a lot of the expenses of the inmates, particularly with regard to health care. And I've mentioned that on several occasions. We as a body have been asked by the Public Defender's Office to support them. Is there a timetable? Have they gotten back with us from the Public Defender's Office on how we can help them? Because I see that as being a big equation. I don't see private attorneys being appointed being a solution.
Yes, sir.
Because what you're gonna have is you're gonna have an attorney down there representing somebody with a violent crime who has no experience in criminal defense. And I'm not the attorney. The attorney's right here. But I just don't know how that works out.
Right, I understand. I can give you some additional information. Just for those, I know Commissioner Burrell attended the meeting, Commissioner Teleferro attended the meeting, and Ed Lazarus attended the meeting, and staff, Eric and I, and Donna Frazier, we all went to the meeting. And we have a tremendous problem at CCC currently. We have 1,520 inmates presently being held there, and the facility is only designed for 1,070. So we got a tremendous problem. But Erica did have an opportunity to meet with, was it Judge Waddell, Erica?
Justice Creighton?
No, Judge some of the, Judge Creighton and some of the other judges.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and give us an update if you don't mind.
It's the same situation. We have an overcrowding at the jail, and the judges are just working with the DA's office and some others to try to work out a solution to try to remedy the problem there. Commissioner, you asked about the Public Defender's Office. We did receive information from them, I think just today or at the end of last week. I know that there's going to be another committee meeting to address that issue and determine where the commission would like to be in regards to the Public Defender's Office.
Okay. I appreciate that update. You know, on the, well, I'll go back to the Public Defender's Office or trying to appoint private attorneys or other attorneys to represent that causes some concerns because, again, you may have attorneys that are not versed in criminal defense represent someone who has a pretty serious charge. And, again, we're picking up the bills for the longer they stay over there and all that other stuff. And it becomes, that stuff is basically falling to us, particularly on the expense side of it. It falls to us. And so we have I think we have a interest in making sure that those folks are fairly represented from the public interest. My other concern is, let's say, and I'm just going to throw out a number because I know people take stuff too literal around here. But let's just say hypothetically 50 people get released or whatever, and then next thing you know, 5 of those 50 people commit a crime, then the narrative becomes, well, we're doing this catch and release, we're being soft on crime, and so it becomes that. And then listen to the conversation about the judges. I'm glad we got a chance to have administration sit around the table with the judges, because just 2 months ago, they were pleased that the judges were setting the bonds too low, and that was causing folks to bail out. And so now they're setting the bonds higher for some of these issues, and they can't bail out. Well, now that's backfilling the jail. And what I ultimately think this conversation is probably going, because it's got to be going somewhere, because there's 2 scenarios that I just described leaves us with the same situation that we're in now, which is an overcrowded jail. And what I think this conversation is headed is, there's going to try to be a case for building a bigger jail.
Well, that question did come up
at
the meeting.
And I wasn't there.
Yeah, it came up at the meeting, Commissioner Jackson, and my response to that was, back in 2010, we did a feasibility study to expand the current CCC capacity, and that came out to $100 million.
Yeah.
And so at that time, it was just cost prohibitive for us to even have any further discussions on that subject, because it would take an enormous millage to pay for that.
Right. So for anybody who suggests that we as a commission, because who would be responsible for building and paying for that jail?
We are.
Okay.
We own the facility.
So anybody who suggests that we don't have a vested interest in this conversation is completely misguided, woefully misguided. Because to incur the debt, it's got to come through the 12 people that sit up here.
That's correct.
To build it, it's got to come through the 12 people that sit up here. So to suggest that we don't have a dog in this hunt, we do. We absolutely do. And if you build another 1,000-bed facility, then I'm almost for sure they're going to find a way to fill it up.
That's right.
Every 1,000 bed, fill it up. And then next thing you know, oh my God, it's overcrowding in the overflow. Got to build another one. And I am a proponent for keeping our community safe, but it will take a lot of convincing to build a bigger jail without a conversation around resources for workforce development, sustainable resources for pre-K, sustainable resources for neighborhood development. We just cannot build bigger jails. That can't be the answer to our crime fighting solution, as well as having a sustainable source of resources for mental health and substance abuse. We can't have those conversations. It can't be monolithic conversations. They have to be inclusive conversations. And again, any attempt at that is going to have to come through the 12 people that sit up here. And again, 2 months ago, the cry was the bonds were being set too low. We're just letting folks out, and it's causing havoc in our community. Now here we are, the jail is overcrowded, and it's a safety concern. And so then we go forward, and the judges start moving the cases quicker. And next thing you know, you got folks who are either inadequately represented, and they are being punished for a crime that they may have not committed, or people are getting off for crimes that they actually did commit. And so then we hadn't moved the needle. And so I just want this body to understand that we have more than just a passive role in these conversations about overcrowding at CCC. And these questions that are being asked need to be taken seriously. They really need to be taken seriously, because the responsibility financially falls to us, for which we are the keepers of the taxpayer dollars and resources. So I'm going to take my duty and my responsibility in this regard very seriously, and I'm going to ask a whole lot of questions about it, because I think I see where the conversation is going. So I appreciate y'all for representing us in those meetings, and we'll look forward to continue to engage in this discussion. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Acting President.
Well, the president is away from his desk, and I think I'm up next anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if I should say thank you, because you invited me to that safety committee in your place, and that was the first one that I've gone to. And I didn't know if all those people showed up because I came that day, because I understand it's normally about a third the amount of people that show up at those meetings, or it might have just been good food, because it was good. But my observation from that safety meeting that we had, that I took away from it, is a lack of communication. Just sitting there listening and observing the conversation that was being made by law enforcement, although the judiciary, part of the judiciary was there, there seemed to be a lack of communication between law enforcement, especially I'm going to point out the sheriffs and the DAs and the judges. It kept coming back to that. The other communication problem that I saw was being actually accused by the legislature that we on the commission do not communicate our wishes and concerns and priorities to the legislature. I know that is not the case. As the 3 years I've been here, we've invited, we normally have that priority session, and it's hard to even get a meeting. So something was wrong with that, and I wasn't going to sit there and allow legislators to accuse us of not communicating that. I asked Dr. Wilson whether or not, what means do we communicate that? And it is our list of priorities. And one of the legislators who was there say, well, you all give us a list, but you don't tell us exactly what you want. So I'm not sure exactly what that meant, but maybe this time, maybe we should highlight those things that we need, especially in this area that would help us with the overcrowdingness. they said that you haven't been even asking for money. I know that has not been true. The last 3 years I've been there, and Dr. Wilson said that it's been on there for 15 years. So I hadn't been here 15 years, but something is wrong with that picture. In addition, Judge Critton was there, and I understood that they were supposed to have another meeting, and we're not a part of that meeting. Because I asked, well, are we going to go to this next meeting that the judges are going to have? And I was told no, but I think we should. If we're going to be the gatekeeper, then I think we should be at each meeting and have some input. If not, just sit there and listen. Because I was wondering, based upon the conversation that was had at the safety meeting, there were a number of recommendations that came out of that meeting. Would they be carried over to the judges' meeting? And it was my understanding from the meeting with Judge Critton that they were supposed to be refining some of those recommendations. Dr. Wilson, did they do that, or do you know? Those recommendations that we had, it was a litany of recommendations that were made at the safety meeting with law enforcement. It's my understanding that the next meeting that they were supposed to have was with Judge Critton, and from there they were supposed to refine some of those recommendations once it's taken back to that meeting, and then hopefully we'll get a list so that we'll know how to work on them. Is that not the case, or did I miss something there?
No, sir. That meeting did take place last Thursday, and Ms. Erica Bryan attended that meeting representing our organization.
Okay.
And I think they were trying to figure out what would be an expedient method to address the immediate concern. And out of that, they were looking to contract with X number of additional lawyers from the community and pay them for their services. And I think there was a prioritization board.
There were several recommendations. There are no definitive recommendations made at this time. There was a general discussion of regards to certain recommendations, including whether or not to look at funding contract attorneys. That's just one of the recommendations. And yes, they will at some point delineate, put in a document what those recommendations may be. Now, how they'll provide those to us, there's still ongoing dialogue about that, but yes, the commission will be informed of any recommendations or any changes or any requests that may be made of the commission. But none of that's been finalized at this time.
Well, I can remember at least 5 recommendations or conversations that we had on what could be done on a short-term basis and possibly on the long-term basis. The
Right, but all of
legislative
those were recommendations.
Okay.
And that was in a general meeting, as you talked about, with several people. So you then have to go back and determine whether or not any of those recommendations are feasible. Can they actually implement those? What's the pros and cons? So what happened at the meeting that we had last week? Now there'll be discussions as to what actually can be put in place, because once you get to the persons who actually have to implement it, there were also concerns about what would be the impact, what would be the impact to the public, different viewpoints as to what can and cannot be done. What we had last week at the meeting that you attended was just a general conversation of many things, as you said, that could be done. But now, what actually can be put in place is something totally different.
Well, at what point will we have action items, or do you know?
I don't have an answer as to what point, but I do know that the persons that could implement those, as you know, the parish, we pay for a lot of it, but we're not responsible
Right.
for actually implementing any changes or policies that they'll put in place.
Well, that's my
So-
concern as to when it will get to us, because we seem to be sitting there with the purse, but we have very little input on what is derived, what we can do based upon our funding, whether we have to go out for another request for additional funding, whether it's from the state or from our own taxpayers. So that's what I drew from that meeting, the one that I went to, and I was hoping that, I thought that they was gonna try to resolve that at the next one. But we're going from
this
there.
problem, Commissioner, this has been a problem that we've dealt with for, in the past over years.
Decades.
It is not something that gets solved in one meeting. But hopefully they will have some recommendations that they can implement, and the commission would be notified of those, what they actually decide to implement.
Well, I'm sure it's not gonna be dissolved in 1 week, Mr. President, because it appears that this has been going on for years, and they haven't resolved it yet. I'm sure we've had other meetings with some of these recommendations. It appears that somebody has to make some decisions. And it seems like there's some politics that's going on in this. I observed that too. So it was pretty enlightening. So I'll go back to another one if you invite me.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Everson. Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir, Commissioners. I forgot to mention one item. The legislative priorities, we are requesting you all turn them into us by September the 29th. And I've received a few of them, and I appreciate that. So we're trying to collect your thoughts. We can put it into one document. And by the way, I was kind of blown away by the fact that some of our legislators say that they didn't know it was a priority for the public defender's office, and it's been on our list for the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, that's what
And I took exception to that. But anyway, that being what it is, I asked one of the legislators, she said, we just giving them too much information. She said, you sent me a full-page document with 50 things on it. Give me a couple of things that I can honestly work for you all, and not 50 things that you would like to have.
Well, we just need to prioritize.
Yes, sir. And I said, our list is prioritized if you look at it, but we also list the commissioner's concerns. But what I was told was that forget all that, tell us what's important to you all and let us work the important issues, and don't send us no long, drawn-out lists.
Well,
quote, unquote.
Mr. Chairman, in addition to that, she said pick up the phone and call.
Right.
And
The state
so that
legislation?
should be our charge then, to pick up the phone and burn their ear.
Okay.
Because having been there 12 years, that does work sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Commissioner Epperson, are you back on the board, or is that an old one?
No, that's all.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's see. All right, Mr. Clerk, we are ready to move on to...
I'm on the board, Mr. President.
Didn't see it, Commissioner Johnson. Go ahead.
Okay, on October 17th, we'll have the ARP subcommittee meeting at 2 o'clock, and we'll have the appropriations meeting at 3 o'clock.
Okay. Are those already on the board? Well, I'm sure the clerk will notify us of all those.
We just locked those dates in during the meeting today, so we'll send those out shortly. I do want to let everyone know, just real quick, the system that we track your request to speak on crashed, and then it's back up now. But we may have lost some, if there was somebody that had a request to speak that didn't get acknowledged.
I think we lost Commissioner Johnson, but he raised his hand, so we're good to go.
Maybe the only one, but
All
just
right.
wanted to let y'all know in case. Okay, that being said, if we're ready to move along, we are at commission remarks.
Work session agenda items.
Okay, we are at communiques. You can
For
address your
work
issue.
session agenda items.
Work session agenda.
Commission remarks, communiques, reports, and other items related to work session agenda.
Okay. Commissioner Burrell.
Mr. Chairman, since it was brought up just then about our priorities, legislative priorities, one other thing that I want to share with Dr. Wilson, based on a conversation I had with Attorney Bernstein, is that on this OTB, off-track betting situation that we are having to address today, which is on the agenda, is that we look at putting forth a piece of legislation, part of our priorities, if it's important, to look at tying the OTB to our zoning ordinance, because that is what that's what we did with our video poker and other gaming activities. It was tied to our local zoning, and if we are able to do that, then you won't have the state dictating to us what we can do on a local basis as much. And hopefully that can help resolve this situation that we have. I'm not sure if it'll go anywhere because the lobbyists probably eat you alive, but at the same time, it's worth an effort. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, Commissioner Epperson, I see you back on the board, but that's probably still the old one.
I guess that's the glitch with the system.
Yeah. Anyone else? Does anyone have any communiques or committee reports or other items related to the agenda? Seeing none, let's move on, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, and did you have a president's report today?
I'm good.
All right, we'll move on. We have no old business scheduled, so that brings us to new business, where the first item is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6161 of 2022. That's an ordinance amending the 2022 budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Economic Development Fund to carry over the 2021 appropriation for the African American Chamber of Commerce and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move for introduction.
We have a motion by.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jackson, a second by Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Jackson, would you just give us a little background on this?
Sure, I'll defer to finance first, or Assistant Parish, either one, or Dr. Wilson. I would defer to them first.
Haley,
The Shreveport African American Chamber.
could you please speak into the mic? We can't quite hear you. There you go.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. It's the African American Chamber. They did not receive their funding in 2021. So
They actually incurred the cost, commissioners. They spent the monies, they turned over their receipts in their report. However, the CEA, due to various reasons, did not get to be able to sign it, did not get finalized until 2022, well after we had closed 2021. So we just need to carry over the funds into 2022 in order to be able to reimburse them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And my hope is that, and I talked to Assistant Administrator, I know Stormy calls a CAO, Brian, last week about it. My hope is that with the revamp or revisions to our new process, our new NGO process, that it would prevent situations like this from from recurring, because once you get to a certain part of the year, it becomes a challenge to get cooperative endeavors, checks cut, and money spent. And so we end up with situations where the year ends and funding is still not being drawn down and things of that nature. So that's one of the things that we hope will be resolved with this new NGO process. So it happens. I believe this would be considered budget neutral.
Yes.
This would be considered budget neutral. So the revenue has already been sort of incurred. They just need to be able to draw it down to be able to keep our internal, we need this ordinance to carry it over to keep our internal controls intact, but hopefully the new process would work to prevent these instances. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Hopkins?
Yeah, and basically he just said that, what I was kind of going to talk about. This is not a new appropriation or anything. This is something we approved in 2021, and they spent the money, but just the disconnect is time-wise. So this will just take care of that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrell?
Just a point of clarification on a situation like this, in which I may be able to share with any other organization. It seems as though toward the end of the year, something was sent out saying that if you didn't get certain things in by a certain deadline, it would not be able to be funded this year. Did I remember? It may have been an email just to us, but I would think the organization would need to know that too.
It's not necessarily done that way. That is usually mentioned in the CEA, but since they had problems by being in transition getting the CEA, they probably never saw that language until after the financial year closed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else on the board, I think we're ready to vote to advance or not advance this to Thursday. Mr. Clerk, we ready?
I believe so.
All right, everybody vote, please.
All right, that motion carries with 9 in support, none in opposition, and 3 absent. And that gets us to the next item on our agenda, authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6162 of 2022. This is an ordinance granting approval for additional septic system at 153 Monique Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to advance to Thursday, excuse me. We have a motion by the chair, second by Commissioner Chavez to advance this to Thursday. Colleagues, this has been a long and complicated path for Ms. Bosco, who is in the audience today. It began, I can't remember when I spoke to her, probably in February or March when this all began. And her situation has found itself kind of falling between well, first it had to wait for the Caddo Parish Planning Commission to get populated. And then once it got populated, then we had to go through that process while at the same time going through Public Works and a health component. And she's really been very patient with the parish and the state of Louisiana as we've worked our way through this process. Currently, there's an ordinance that does not allow 2 septic systems on a 1-acre lot without proof of safety by the public service or by a professional engineer. And Ms. Bosco has retained a professional engineer and has had a study done by Moore and Associates, a well-respected local public engineer, professional engineering firm, to speak to the safety of the matter. And there's a letter attached to your agenda testifying to the safety. So that's kind of the background. Any questions on this before we vote whether to forward it to Thursday or not? I'll ask Ms. Bosco to come up and speak unless we have questions. Commissioner Jackson.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. To the author, I would like to note historically, or in this instance, I don't know that anybody ever had to lean on or looked over to administration for their approval on it. We've taken it on its face value.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you,
Said
Commissioner
we're
Jackson.
taking it on its face value that this is something that's a priority for your district.
It's a priority for a constituent of mine.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get this done for them, right?
Right.
And so we didn't have, I have not, or I would not look over to administration or somebody else to kind of get their approval. It's a priority for you. So I think it becomes something that I would support because you see this as a priority for your constituent.
I understand your lesson, your message, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Hopkins.
I did do some checking. I did find that the health unit is okay with this. They have no problems. And then our Public Works they're not against doing something like this. It's something a little different, but I think everybody's on the same page, and so I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. We've worked real hard to try to get everybody on the same page. Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Bosco, you're welcome to speak or not speak.
Chairman.
Of me or of Ms. Bosco?
Probably more of you.
Okay. Well, maybe we let her speak.
My file is very thick. To apologize. So I did address y'all a couple of months back, unprepared. I apologize for that. I had a family member who was in the hospital. So this has been a thing. My original email to you, Mr. President, was on March 10th because I, as a constituent and as a Caddo Parish resident, was unsure where I needed to go, what I needed to do, what the process is for me to be able to go through this. I understand permits and zoning and all the things. I just didn't understand it was going to take this long. So I have done my due diligence. I have no malicious intent with identifying all the holes and kind of being bounced around through the cracks in the system. Essentially, that is not my intention. I guarantee that my only intention is just to provide a home on the back of my property for my father. and so I can take care of him with his failing health, mentally, physically, etc. So I do understand that ordinances are created for a reason. Generally, it's to appeal to the majority, because y'all have rules that y'all do. Like I've told y'all before, I sit on a nonprofit board, so I understand that there is a process to get everything completed. I did go and find the civil engineer to make sure that there were not going to be any possible infringements on my neighboring properties, that my neighbors have no issues with this. As a matter of fact, one of my neighbors has a secondary residence on his property. I just think he falls into the city versus the parish because I'm right there on that line. So I did my due diligence, and I hope that y'all will approve this, to be able to place this for a vote on Thursday's meeting. And so I can.
Thank you, Ms. Basco. And just to be clear, we're voting to forward it to Thursday, where it would have to lay over till the 18th before final vote would occur. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Burrell, back on the board.
Yes, sir. I just might want to address this to you. The question I would have, just listening to this constituent, and I think in every way we should try to help them. But will this set a precedent that a professional engineering would be required for this exception going forward?
Well, our current ordinance, as written, states that exceptions to, that's why we went this path, because to get an exception to the ordinance, you must get a certified letter from a professional engineer. Certified letter is not the right word, but a letter from a professional engineer attesting to the safety of the issue.
So your constituent did not know this, and I know she said that she felt like she'd been having a run around. She didn't know this up front.
Yeah, well, there were lots of kind of different organizations involved at the time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think we're good. Commissioner Johnson.
Let's vote. No, let's vote.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would appreciate my colleagues' support on this matter. Commissioner Jackson, are you back on the board before we vote?
No, I should
Okay,
not.
must have popped up for some reason. All right, let's vote, please, Mr. Clerk. Voting on forwarding to Thursday or not.
All right, and that motion carries with 9 in support, none in opposition, and 3 absent. That brings us to the next item, which is authorizing.
Wait, Mr. Clerk, thank you, everyone. Yes.
I just want to point out, this is to introduce, it'll lay over 2 weeks. Because you said earlier about voting on Thursday.
No.
I wanted Ms. Basco to be sure.
I said the 18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I get home.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We can continue.
Okay, authorizing resolution number 46 as your next item of business. It's a resolution to provide an annual certification to the State of Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development in accordance with the off-system bridge replacement program and otherwise providing with respect thereto.
Move to Thursday.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Hopkins, a second by Commissioner Lazarus to advance to Thursday. Any comments, Commissioner Hopkins?
No, sir.
Anyone? Commissioner Lazarus? Commissioner Johnson?
I'd like to englobo in advance Resolution 46, the special resolution for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the special resolution for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, the appointment for James Martin to the Fire District number 8, and the appointment to Stacy Pierce
Yeah.
to the Fire District Board number 5.
Second.
And also to consider a recommendation concerning recognition of POW MIA.
Okay.
And authorize the approval for Commission Travel 2022 Keep Louisiana Beautiful Conference.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson to englobo and advance agenda item 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, and 12.9. And that was seconded by Commissioner Lazarus. Any other comments, Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Jackson, you on the board?
Yeah, I'd like to be added to the breast cancer awareness as well as the domestic violence awareness month as a co-sponsor, Mr. Clerk, at
Got
this
it.
time.
Okay, and if we could also add Commissioner Burrell to those 2 items, please.
And also just want to point out to our colleague traveling to the 2022 Keep Louisiana Beautiful Conference. That nobody made you run Commissioner Telefero. Nobody made you run the hamster wheel to allow you to go. I think if it's something that's important to you, it's something that you think will make Caddo Parish a better place, I'm supportive of it. And so glad to see that you realize that your role as a duly elected official representing the fine folks of Caddo Parish can serve us well at this conference. And so I got your email, and I just think that it's a good thing that when we get out and bring resources and information back to our parish. So thank you, and hope you represent us well.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think Commissioner Burrell is back on the board.
I just wanted to, if possible, be added to 12.4, 12.5, and 12.8.
Did you hear that, Mr. Clerk? 12.4, 12.5, and 12.8. Commissioner Burrell would like to be at. All right. Anybody else? Seeing no one, let's vote, please. We are voting to englobo and advance the items that Commissioner Johnson raised.
And that motion carries with 9 in support and none in opposition, 3 absent. That brings us now to 12.10, which is for the commission to convene into an executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I move to actually suspend the agenda and just adopt or advance the consideration of the moratorium ordinance.
Second.
All right, so you want to suspend the agenda? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Jackson to not suspend the agenda, just advance.
To suspend the agenda, skip the executive session and advance.
Okay, and we have a second by Commissioner Burrell. A motion and a second. Any comments?
One comment, Mr. Chairman.
Well, this is gonna be to suspend the rules to do it.
Right, suspend the rules.
Okay. Wait a minute here. Let's see what we got going on.
So we gotta vote to suspend the rules first.
All right,
and
well, let's
then take
vote
up the
to
action.
suspend the rules.
So our first motion is a motion from Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Burrell, to take an agenda item out of order. Is that
right?
That is correct?
Well, we were at that point in the agenda, right?
We just have one in front of it.
Right. Right. If we approve it, we just don't have to go into executive session. It's a moot issue.
Well, I mean, who was asked, well, the parish attorney is asking that we go into executive session.
Right. Well, I talked to them, and I think it's fine.
We're fine if no one has any questions for us. The
Okay.
reason we wanted to do the executive session was because we think we left some questions out there the other week.
Okay.
When we brought it up, so.
And Commissioner Jackson, I'm just trying to get clarification here. I'm not trying to be
Well, I mean, if y'all
disrespectful.
want to, I can
No, I
withdraw
think
my
I'm
motion.
good. I'm good if you could. I'm good if the attorney's
I
good.
just was trying to get
All right,
everybody
so
here.
we are voting to suspend the rules right now, right?
Yes.
Let's please vote.
Okay, that motion carries with 9 in support, none in opposition, and 3 absent.
Okay.
Is there another motion now?
Oh, a motion to advance the moratorium, to advance it. You vote your conscience on Thursday, but advance.
Second.
We have a motion to advance item number 12-11. The motion was made by Commissioner Jackson. The second was by Commissioner Epperson. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on your motion?
No, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Burrell.
Since our parish attorney said if there's no question, I did have a question of Henry, but you can only do that in an executive session. Is that what I'm understanding?
We would normally do it in an
clarify.
executive session, but we can get with you after this meeting and answer it.
Well, I think it's for the benefit of the commission.
Can't answer the question.
Well, that's between you all.
Well,
They
the
have
question.
rules.
Well, let me just state the question. You can say whether or not it should go in the executive committee. So I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
Okay. The question is based upon what I stated earlier, that by not doing the moratorium, by allowing the moratorium, And then we may be able to look at creating a resolution to tie this to the zoning. And I was gonna get Henry to explain that, but if we can't do that here, then I'll just withdraw it.
You want us to say that whether your question is whether or not we can do that right now in
Yes.
this? No, we
Okay.
can't. You would have to have it on a separate agenda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. So we now have the item 12.11 up for consideration for a vote.
To advance to Thursday.
It doesn't actually say advance to Thursday, does it?
It would be
Everything's to
authorizing the consideration, which advances it to Thursday.
Okay.
Yes, that's the same as your typical items. You're authorizing it to be on your Thursday agenda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So Commissioner Epson, you just, all right, you were just clarifying, right? All right, we're ready for a vote, I think.
And that motion carries with 9 in support and none in opposition, 3 absent. And that brings us, well, now we need either a motion to go back into regular.
Can we have a motion to go back into regular session?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Chavez and seconded by Burrell.
Okay, so that brings us, I'm sorry, did that pass by acclamation or is that?
Are we all in favor of that? Yes, we're all in favor of going back into regular session.
Thank you. And so item 12.10 is next. It seems it's irrelevant now, but I just need instruction to move along, or?
Let's
Okay.
carry on.
That brings us to 13, which is communication committee reports.
Anybody else? Anyone new? Commissioner Burrell, you back on the board?
Yes.
Go ahead.
My communications and committee report is having to do with the fairground field situation out there, which is, it's in my my council, my
Your
commission
district.
district. Getting my governments mixed up. That situation has seemed to have escalated from just a regular construction tear down.
Deconstruction, yeah.
Deconstruction, tear down, to a situation where public health may be involved in this. I was assured by the mayor that he would get me something to arrest my fears that by tearing this facility down with the bat, they call it guano, I call it dung. Being in the facility, that tearing it down could cause it to become airborne. It concerned me, so many of you received an email from me about 5 o'clock in the morning, I guess, after reading a report from Mayo's Clinic saying that it could cause histoplasmosis, which is a lung disease, which can be spread by bat dung, by allowing it to become airborne. And since that time, getting the information from Mayo Clinic, I asked Dr. Wilson if he would contact Dr. White to give us some assurance that that we would not be presenting a problem there, because there are different businesses and organizations that surrounds that facility, i.e. The Boys Club. You have the fire station, State Fair Fire Station. The Louisiana State Museum is right next door. Willis Knighton is also there. You have several neighborhoods that surround it, which is within my district, which is Warner Park, Ingleside, and Queensboro, and even Motown, which is not in my district, but a portion of it abuts it. This became very much a concern because we received additional information of a situation, I think it was in Indiana, where an amusement park was torn down, and they had a similar situation, and it infected over 100,000 people, and 15 died. So when you start talking about that, and we represent these areas, I think it's important that we at least put that information out there, because we have a responsibility for the public health of people in our districts, especially in this parish. So I have not gotten any assurances from anybody as of yet. So I'm still concerned about that, Mr. President, and I don't know where that is. Dr. Wilson from Dr. White, if you
Yes, sir.
penciled a letter.
Yes, sir.
I haven't gotten anything from the mayor, in which he assured me that he would send me something. I haven't gotten that yet. I understand what he's trying to do because we've been fighting for redevelopment in that area for a long time, but not at the risk of public health. So if you can check into that, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'm still waiting on a reply from Dr. Weiss, but I did send your request today. You sent it to me, and I'll follow up tomorrow and ask her if she got an answer, because I think she told me she was waiting on the report from the environmental professionals on that.
Well, if you wait any longer, they've already started to deconstruct the concrete portion, which is where the problem is. It becomes airborne once they start tearing down the concrete. So we may be a dollar late, a day late and dollar short. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll follow up for you, Commissioner Burrell.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to note that tomorrow is National Night Out here in our area. Looking forward to joining several organizations. I'll be stopping by Galilee, North Highland School Park, and Stony Hill, the Stony Hill area. I hope that commissioners will go into their districts to support those particular events. I do know that the kickoff, I believe we all received the email about the kickoff taking place at Shreveport Police Department headquarters. And so it's always a good time of the year. I'm so glad that many years ago the decision was made to move this event back from September to October. Clearly there's a difference in the feel and how it feels outside. Still a little warm toward the 5 and 6 o'clock, but nowhere as near as hot as it was the dry heat that we had in September. So it's a great time to get out, network with your neighbors, learn what's going on in the community. It's a time-honored tradition that a lot of the neighborhood associations look forward to, and I'm looking forward to being out there tomorrow. I'm sorry, August to October. It was moved from August. Thank you for that clarification. But it was hot.
Yeah,
but,
much better.
Having it in October is much better, and I think we start setting the national trend because nationally it has now been moved back to October. So 6 p.m. to 9. Some organizations will do there from 6 to 8. It's a great opportunity to get out and network. Dr. Wilson, I appreciate you for following up on those requests that I had last week. A lot of information shared. I haven't heard from Ms. Stacy Brown.
Yes, sir.
And
I did talk to her today.
Okay.
And I gave her your number.
Okay.
And because she thought the conversation y'all needed to have need to be talking to you as opposed to answering those questions that I sent her.
Okay. Well.
But she said she's going to call you, and if not, she can answer the questions that I asked her.
Yeah, because I like to have my conversations on the record.
Yeah, well, I did invite her if she'd like to come down here too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's up to her.
Well, however we get the conversation had, I like for it to be had. And again, I just think that there are some questions that I have that I think, if we all just kind of have an honest conversation about it,
Okay.
and we're all professionals, so I don't see why we can't have that
Is your preference that she
conversation.
appear, call you individually?
I'm open for whatever. I just haven't heard back just yet. Mr. Clark, you don't have to come up, but the meeting that took place with the tenants, I'd like to get with your office about that. I was not able to make those meetings. They seem very when you have meetings down, and I know y'all were trying to capture your information as quick as possible, but a lot of times when you have those meetings down here, it's hard for everyday citizens to get to. And I'd like to see if I can invite y'all out to maybe replicate. I don't know what your timeline is, but I'd love to see if y'all could replicate it at a smaller level, at the neighborhood level. Again, I'm not sure what timeline you may be up against, but I know you did discuss it as well for doing one for the parish. And I just don't want the feedback to be one-sided, to be heavy on one side and not have that information from the others, because if you let one side speak, there's not a problem at all. And we just know that's not the truth. But then I also, I'm aware of some resources that I would love to see that group have a session with some folks that I'm plugged into to have a meeting about resources to help sort of fix some of those problems. So it'll help them improve their property while also committing to keep the rates low. But usually it's that conversation starts, well, if we have to improve this, we're going to have to increase rents. There are resources out there that allow you to improve without necessarily having to increase it. So we'd love to get with your office about how we can have that conversation. That's it for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner.
Oh, wait, I apologize. I'm not done. I'm not done. Dr. Wilson, I copied you and Ms. Bryant on an email for 114 Texas. I believe close to the end of the week, we will have a call scheduled or something so that we can get on that. I would like to see us sort of move toward having a agreement or understanding in place, hopefully by the end of this month. I heard Commissioner Burrell talking about Fairgrounds Field. Mr. Link Coleman, and I asked him that question. His interest in Fairground Field is purely about seeing the betterment of Fairgrounds Field. And while I don't know that I agree 100% with it, I appreciate a citizen stepping forward to offer solutions. He's being solution driven in his, and again, we don't always have to agree, but we can have this understanding that we appreciate it. So I think I copied y'all on those emails last week about setting that up. And I also, Jeff, if we could kind of hold open the back here for this week, the conference room for this week, because if we get that meeting scheduled, I would like for it to take place down here in the conference room on 114 Texas.
Okay, we do have a few things that are already on the calendar, but just
okay,
it's
for the later part of the week.
So just let me know when you're thinking, and we'll make sure.
Okay.
If it's not available, we'll find another space.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one other thing on this National Night Out business. I may be mistaken, just not recalling, but last year, some of the commissioners was wanting to try to get a list of National Light locations in their area, and I understood that Dr. Wilson, that you all would try to help provide that. Are we doing that this year? Because I would like to have that list too. I don't know if the city does it, the police does it, or what have you, but it would be very helpful to us if you all could acquire that for us.
Commissioner Burrell, the communications manager, Crystal, she's already requested that listing, and when we get it, we'll provide it to you.
I just sent it to you.
Okay, it's tomorrow. I know
You sent
it's
it to-
tomorrow, so Commissioner Jackson just mentioned it, so I
Okay, well,
wanted
he
to try
said,
to.
he just sent it to you, so. Commissioner Jackson said he sent it to you,
Okay.
so we'll get it to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner Epperson.
Just want to notify you all that Mayor Frank Stavich, the mayor of the town of Greenwood, transitioned today, and the arrangements are pending.
Is he former mayor?
That's it.
I think that a mayor pro tem, I guess, was he formally still the mayor and there was a mayor pro tem?
He's been in extended care for quite some time.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Our prayers are with his family. Seeing no one else on the board, what else do we have, Mr. Chair, Mr.
Motion to
Clerk?
adjourn.
Well, this brings us to citizens' comments, late arrivals. I do not have any
Move to adjourn.
requests.
We have motions to adjourn, all by acclamation. Thank you all. Commissioner Hopkins? Time for a question. Sure.